Right now, somewhere in your city, a family is sharing a one-room flat. The walls are damp. The stairwell smells of last night's cooking and somebody else's despair. The children do their homework on the same surface where dinner was eaten, where arguments were had, where sleep, when it finally comes, is thin and restless. We call that a housing crisis. 2,000 years ago, in the city that ruled the known world, they called it Tuesday. You are 7 years old. You live on the fourth floor of an insula, a Roman tenement block, in the Subura district. You have never seen the inside of a senator's house. You have never eaten a meal that wasn't worried over. And this morning, before the sun has cleared the Palatine Hill, you are already awake. Not because someone woke you, because something woke you. The building is groaning. The Subura. Even the name carries a reputation. A tangle of narrow streets where sunlight arrives late and leaves early. Where the noise never fully stops. Where the smell of several thousand human lives lived in close proximity becomes, after a while, simply the smell of the world. Rome in the 1st century BC is among the largest cities in the ancient world. Somewhere between several 100,000 and close to 1 million people pressed into a space with no real plan, and no municipal zoning, no fire code, and no mercy for anyone born without money or a name, and you have neither. You are a free-born Roman citizen. That matters. It is a legal distinction that separates you from the enslaved people who live 2 floors below, who belong to the building's owner the way the roof tiles do. You have no master, but freedom in the Subura is a category that does not come with much attached to it. Your father is a faber, a craftsman, probably a metal worker or a builder by trade. What we know from archaeological evidence and the writings of figures like Juvenal and Martial is that men like him worked irregular hours for irregular pay, dependent on contracts that could vanish with the political mood, the weather, or the whim of a wealthy patron. Your mother manages the household, which, in a 2-room apartment, means managing everything with almost nothing. She is likely younger than you will realize when you're older. Women in her position married early. Life moved fast. You pull a rough wool blanket tighter. Feel the scratch of it against your chin. The building is still groaning. You listen. You wait. The Rome most people imagine, the marble temples, the Senate's gilded rhetoric, the triumph parades rolling down the Via Sacra, that Rome exists. But it exists above you, literally and otherwise. The wealthy build their homes on the hills. You live in the valley. The smoke from 100,000 cooking fires settles here first. The floodwater from the Tiber finds you first. The disease finds you first. This is not a metaphor. This is geography. Or the insula is Rome's answer to mass urban housing, and it is a solution built entirely around profit. Multi-story timber and concrete blocks, typically 3 to 5 stories high, where rent increases the lower you go and danger increases the higher you climb. Your family rents on the 4th floor. The stairs are steep. The wooden framing creaks with the specific complaint of old timber under too much weight. There is no running water up here. Water is carried. Waste is dealt with at the communal latrines at ground level. Fire is the thing everyone fears and no one discusses. The insulae burn. Augustus would eventually establish Rome's first organized civic fire brigade, the Vigils, partly in response to this reality. But in the 1st century BC, in the Subura, there is no organized response. There is instead the notorious private brigade of men like Crassus, who dispatched his crews not to save the burning building, but to buy it, cheaply. While the flames were still climbing, there is only the panic in the stairwell, and the choice of what to grab before you run. You sleep light because of this. Not as a metaphor, actually. You are listening for smoke. You are listening for the groan that means the building is no longer deciding whether to hold. The morning light, when it finally finds your window, is thin and gray. You eat before you think about anything else. Breakfast is bread, porridge, olive oil, legumes. At garum, the fermented fish sauce that Rome uses the way we use salt, cheap enough that even the poor consume it. Fresh meat is rare. The grain dole, the frumentatio, helps. Your father collects it, a queue, tokens, bureaucracy. The ancient friction of state distribution, recognizable to anyone who has navigated a modern benefits office. You are not going to school today. You may never go to school in any formal sense. Formal schooling cost money. The daily fee paid to a teacher, the loss of a child who might otherwise be earning or helping. What you have instead is the street. And the street is its own kind of school. But the street is also where the violence is, where the debt collectors operate, where the gangs affiliated with powerful political figures like Clodius Pulcher, whose street networks in the mid-1st century BC are historically documented, enforce a certain social order with their fists, where the line between community and coercion is thin enough that a child learns early to read rooms and read people with an accuracy that no formal education could teach. You learn who controls which block. You learn which shopkeeper will give you a heel of bread if you run an errand, and which one will have you beaten for loitering. You learn the difference between the anger that passes and the anger that doesn't. These are the literacy skills of survival. The Roman class system is not merely cultural, it is legal. The senatorial and equestrian orders are defined by property thresholds codified in Roman law. The distance between your father and the men carried in litters through these same streets is not just a matter of luck or effort. It is constitutionally maintained. You see this every morning. The litter passes. The enslaved bearers stare forward. The man inside doesn't look down. The street parts for him. It does not part for you. Roman writers of the period describe the urban poor as a volatile, manageable mass. Keep the poor fed enough not to riot. Entertain them enough not to think. You will go to the games eventually. You will feel the roar of the crowd, and for a few hours, the weight will lift. You will scream yourself hoarse and feel it briefly that you are part of something enormous and powerful, and you are, just not in the way that benefits you. Now, here is what your childhood does not know. It is standing inside one of the most politically unstable periods in Roman history. The 1st century BC is the late Republic in its terminal phase. The grain supply, dependent on imports from Sicily, Sardinia, North Africa, is a political instrument. When it is disrupted, whether by war, corruption, or the jockeying of competing generals, the price of bread moves. And when the price of bread moves in the Subura, people move. Debt is the other blade. Roman law had formally abolished the most brutal early forms of debt bondage, but legal mechanisms still left the poor profoundly exposed. One bad season, one illness, one lost contract. The children of the Subura understand this not as legal theory, but as lived reality. They have seen it happen to the family on the floor above. They have watched men they know become, suddenly, men with nothing. But the Subura also produces its own forms of resistance and community. The collegia, associations of tradesmen, craftsmen, neighbors, provide a web of mutual support. Burial clubs ensure a man's body is not left in the street. Neighborhood shrines bind communities together at the crossroads. The poor are not simply passive recipients of their condition. They are organizing, quietly, imperfectly, with the tools available to them. There is a particular kind of weight that has no name in your world, not the acute terror of a single catastrophe, which passes. This is something else, the low, unrelenting pressure of never quite knowing. Will the rent be met this month? Will father's contract be renewed? Is that cough your mother has been ignoring something that will pass, or something that won't? Rome had no public health care in any meaningful sense for the urban poor. Disease moved fast in the Subura. Mortality rates among children were, by modern standards, catastrophic. Scholars including Beryl, Rawson, and Christian Laes have shown that grief at child death was profound and widely expressed, even among the poor. Attachment ran deep. It simply had to survive more. And so you grow up with a kind of vigilance that doesn't have a name in your world. You are not anxious in the language of your time. You are simply alert, always measuring, always calculating. The smile of the man at the top of the stairs, does it mean safety or trouble? The quietness at your parents' dinner table? Is it peace, or is it the silence of a conversation they are not having in front of you? You become very good at reading silence. You are still 7. The building is still groaning. Somewhere below, a dog is barking at nothing, or at everything. You pull the rough wool blanket tighter. Feel the scratch of it against your chin. You listen to your parents breathing in the dark, and you wait for the morning to decide what it will bring. Here is what archaeology has given us, and what it cannot give us. It has given us the walls of the insula, the food remains, the writing tablets, the evidence of fire damage repaired and re-damaged, the legal codes and the satirical poems, and the funerary inscriptions where a father records the age of a child who did not survive the summer. And it cannot give us what it felt like to be small in a city that large. To understand, at an age when children should perhaps not understand it, that the world has a structure, and that structure was not made for you. We build monuments to Caesar. We write books about Augustus. We marvel at the engineering of the aqueducts. We say very little about the child on the 4th floor. And yet, and this is the thing that does not change across 2,000 years, that child woke up anyway. Went down the stairs anyway, navigated the street, read the people, earned what could be earned, loved who could be loved, held on to whatever sense of self the Subura left intact. The capacity to do that, to persist inside a system built against you with no guarantee of outcome, on nothing but the dense and wordless human instinct to continue, is not a Roman trait. It is just a human one, and it is older than any empire that has ever claimed to have invented it.